Hey, what's up everyone? It's Mr. Summers here, and this is number 160, Minuet for Winds and Keyboard Percussion. Alright, so we learned in the last two lessons about eighth notes and eighth rests, and we are going to apply them to some actual music here. This piece, again, it's called Minuet. Minuet is actually a type of dance. It's a Baroque dance in 3/4 time. This is a pretty famous melody. You may have heard it before by the composer Johann Sebastian Bach. So this melody's, it's a good 400 years old or so now. So first thing we want to do, as always, is check our time signature and our key signature. Okay, our time signature, of course, is 3/4. I mentioned that a moment ago. 3 beats per measure. And check your key signature. C instruments, 2 flats, B flat and E flat. A's are natural. B flat instruments, no flats, no sharps. Everything is natural. B natural, F natural. E flat instruments, your F's are sharp, but that's it. And horn, of course, your B's are flat, and that is it. Okay, so I cannot stress this enough. It doesn't matter how many times I say it, how many times I remind you, how many different ways I teach it. There's always a few students who just ignore the key signature every time. So it's really important that you pay attention to that key signature. All right. Next thing we want to do is talk about articulation. Let's take a look now at measure 1. Okay, measure 1. There is a slur underneath the second and third notes. There is a slur, a curved line underneath or above, depending on how your music looks. Beat 2. Okay, percussion, you can kind of ignore this part. You don't really do slurs. All right. Now, winds. I'm going to play the first measure, and I'm going to play it 3 different ways. And I want you to tell me which way was correct. Here's the first way. Here's the second way. And here's the third way. If we were in class, I would ask you to hold up your fingers, which way was correct. Hopefully you said the second way was correct. The first way, what I did wrong was I ignored the slur. I just completely pretended like it wasn't there, and I said ta, or articulated every single note. So here's what that sounds like again when I ignore the slur. So I said ta for every single note, including the note that should have been slurred. In the third example, I did not say ta at all. I did not articulate at all. Some of you are still doing this. It is not correct. It is not musical. You have to articulate your notes. So here's the third way again, where I didn't say ta, I didn't use my tongue, I didn't articulate. Not very musical. Okay, now here's the correct way again, with the correct articulation. First I'll play it, and then I'll sing it so you can hear it more clearly. So that would sound like this. Ta, 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 ta. So notice that I said ta for every single note except for the second note of the slur. There is no articulation. Now think about how that's going to apply to measure 3, measure 5, measure 6, measure 7, and measure 9. Notice that all of those measures that I just mentioned are the exact same rhythm and articulation. The notes are different, but the rhythm and articulation is the same. Ta, tia, ta, ta. Okay? Now let's take a look at measure 2. In measure 2, you have a quarter note, then you have an eighth note, eighth rest, eighth note, eighth rest. Okay, so that's going to look kind of like this. Okay? So we're going to count and clap measure 2. Make sure your hands stay together for all of beat 1, but then they come apart for the end of 2 and the end of 3 for those rests. Here's measure 2, count and clap. Ready, and go. And 1, and 2, and 3, and. And look at measure 4. Same as measure 2. Let's try it. Ready, and go. And 1, and 2, and 3, and. Did your hands stay together on one and? Did they come apart on the end of 2 and on the end of 3? Now let's explore what that's going to be like with our instrument. Again, percussion, it's a little bit different. For measure 2, you're just going to play on your bells. You're just going to play the first note, the second note, and the third note, right? There's not a whole lot you can do to make a quarter note sound different from an eighth note. We can get into finger dampening and stuff like that, but we don't really need to worry about that right now. So measure 2 for percussion is basically you're kind of playing 3 quarter notes, okay? All right, but winds, let's look at that measure 2 again. And I'm going to play it, again, like before, I'm going to play it 3 different ways. And you got to figure out which way is correct and what did I do wrong in the other 2. Okay, here's the first example. Here's the second example. Here's the third example. Which way was correct? If you said the first way, you are correct. Okay? The first example, my first note was a full quarter note, and my second and third notes were short, half of a beat, eighth note, eighth rest. Listen to that first example again. So you should be hearing long, short, short. Okay, you can hear the rests. Here's the second example. In the second example, I believe I played 3 quarter notes, if I remember correctly. So here's what that would sound like. So I didn't do any rests. They were all quarter notes. And in the third example, what I played was every beat was an eighth note, eighth rest. So every note had a rest after it, like this. Okay, so again, let's listen to that first example, the correct example. Long, short, short. Okay, now I think we're ready to try the whole song. Make sure you follow your first ending, repeat sign, back to the beginning, play through again, and then skip your first ending and go to the second ending. All right, let's try it. How'd you do? Excellent. As always, feel free to review any part of this video that you need to. Go through as many times as you need to till you really master it. And that's the minuet. See you next time.